December 1973. Moviegoers lined up around the block, expecting a scary film. What they got was something that made them faint, vomit, and question whether they'd just witnessed actual evil on screen. The Exorcist wasn't just a movie, it was an experience that left scars on everyone who touched it. Behind those terrifying scenes were secrets darker than anything you saw in theaters. These are the dark cinema secrets behind The Exorcist. The curse that wouldn't end. Before filming even began, something felt wrong. The production was plagued by accidents from day one, and the body count started climbing before the film was finished. 9 people connected to The Exorcist died during production. 9. That's not normal. That's not coincidence. That's a number that made even skeptical crew members start questioning whether they were part of something cursed. Actor Jack McGowan played Burke Dennings, the film director who gets his neck twisted and thrown from a window by the possessed Regan. McGowan filmed his scenes knowing his character would die violently. 1 week after filming his final scenes, McGowan died from complications of the flu at the Algonquin Hotel in New York City in January 1973. He was only 54 years old. His character died violently in the film, and then he died in real life shortly after. The parallel was impossible to ignore. The coincidence unsettled everyone on set. Greek actress Vasiliki Maliaros played Father Karras's mother in flashback sequences. In the film, her character dies alone in a psychiatric hospital, leaving Karras consumed with guilt for not being there. Maliaros died shortly after production wrapped, at age 89. Another character who died on screen. Another actor who died in real life. The pattern was becoming disturbing. But the deaths didn't stop with the actors whose characters died. An assistant cameraman's newborn baby died during production. The man who operated the refrigeration equipment for the freezing bedroom set died. A night watchman who worked at the studio was shot and killed. A special effects expert working on the film died unexpectedly. These weren't elderly people dying of natural causes. These were sudden, tragic deaths happening to people at the peak of their careers. Linda Blair's grandfather died during filming, forcing her to take time away to grieve. Max von Sydow's brother died while production was underway, and von Sydow had to leave the set and return to Sweden for the funeral. The delays mounted. The sense of dread grew heavier with each tragedy. Ellen Burstyn, who played Regan's mother Chris, reflected on those deaths years later in the documentary Fear of God. 25 years of The Exorcist. She said 9 deaths during one film was an incredible amount, and it scared everyone. Cast and crew started wondering if they were actually dealing with something supernatural. The deaths were disturbing enough, but then there were the injuries. A carpenter accidentally chopped off his thumb. An electrician lost a toe. These weren't minor mishaps. People were getting seriously hurt, losing body parts, and nobody could explain why this one production was so cursed.
Are you comfortable, Regan?
Yes.
The fire that spared one room. 6 weeks into production, the call came at 4 in the morning. The entire interior set of the McNeil house had burned to the ground. Director William Friedkin got the call from his production manager and initially thought he was being fired. When someone calls at that hour saying, "Don't bother coming to work," your mind goes to the worst places. But this was worse than being fired. The set had cost $500,000 to build in 1972 dollars. That's millions in today's money. 3 stories of detailed interior rooms, painstakingly constructed on a New York soundstage. All of it reduced to charred wreckage overnight. The crew arrived that morning to find smoking ruins where the McNeil home had stood. Nobody ever figured out what started the fire. Fire marshals investigated. One theory suggested a bird flew into a circuit box and caused an electrical short. Maybe. But it was speculation, never proven. What really disturbed the crew wasn't the unknown cause. It was which room survived the inferno. Out of the entire 3-story house set, only one room didn't burn. Regan's bedroom. The room where the possession happens. The room where priests battle the demon. The room at the center of all the horror and violence. That room stood untouched while everything around it burned. The walls were scorched, but the room itself remained intact. as if something had protected it or claimed it. Think about that. In a massive fire that destroyed a 3-story set, one specific room survives. The one room where all the demonic activity centers. Cast and crew, who'd been dismissing talk of curses, started reconsidering. This wasn't normal. This wasn't explainable. The fire delayed production for 6 weeks while they rebuilt the set. Then, once the new set was ready, the sprinkler system malfunctioned and delayed them another 2 weeks. It felt like something didn't want this film made. When filming finally resumed, a priest was brought in. Some crew members believed the set was haunted and wanted an exorcism performed. Father Thomas Birmingham, who served as a technical consultant on the film and played a small role, was asked by Friedkin to perform an exorcism on the set. Birmingham declined, not wanting to increase anxiety, and instead blessed everyone and the production. Whether that blessing helped or not, the production continued, though the sense that something was wrong never left.
Come into me! God damn you!
Friedkin's brutal methods. William Friedkin directed The Exorcist with methods that would never be allowed today. He'd come off winning an Oscar for The French Connection, where he'd staged a real car chase through New York streets that resulted in actual accidents. Friedkin didn't believe in safety margins. He believed in getting the shot, whatever it took. His chair on set had an Oscar for The French Connection written to the left of his name, and to the right, an outline of another Oscar with a question mark beneath it. He wanted that second Oscar, and he'd do anything to get it. His approach to directing The Exorcist was simple: terrify the actors for real, capture their genuine fear on film. No acting required if the fear is authentic. Why have someone pretend to be scared when you can actually frighten them and film the result? Friedkin carried a gun on set, not for protection, for directing. He would fire shotgun blanks randomly during filming to keep the actors on edge and capture their startled reactions. The cast never knew when the gun would go off. They'd be in the middle of a scene, and suddenly, a deafening blast would ring out behind them. The shock on their faces, the genuine terror in their eyes, that's what ended up in the film. He got the idea from director George Stevens, who used the same technique on The Diary of Anne Frank. Friedkin justified it by saying it was difficult to tell an actor to look frightened at a 12-year-old girl in makeup and expect believable terror. You're asking grown adults to be scared of Linda Blair in some prosthetics. It doesn't work unless they're actually scared of something real. The unexpected gunshot produced the response he needed. The fact that it traumatized his actors didn't seem to concern him much. Father William O'Malley, an actual Jesuit priest who played Father Dyer in the film, experienced Friedkin's methods firsthand. They were filming the scene where Father Dyer administers last rites to the dying Father Karras. O'Malley was having trouble getting emotional enough for the scene. Take after take, Friedkin wasn't satisfied. Finally, Friedkin asked O'Malley a simple question: "Do you trust me?" O'Malley said yes. Friedkin immediately slapped him hard across the face. Then he called for cameras to roll. O'Malley, shocked and shaken, delivered the scene exactly as Friedkin wanted. The priest later thanked Friedkin and blessed him for the slap, but that didn't make the method any less brutal. Friedkin openly admitted he used techniques the old-timers employed when directors would do whatever it took to get the shot.
Fuck him! Fuck him, Garrus! From this creature of God!
The cold that became torture. To make the exorcism scenes feel real, Friedkin needed to see the actor's breath. This was 1973, before CGI could add that effect in post-production. The solution was simple but brutal. Refrigerate the set until the actor's breath became visible on film. The bedroom set was outfitted with 4 massive air conditioning units that ran all night. By morning, the temperature had dropped to 30 or 40 degrees below zero. The cold was so extreme that one morning, the crew arrived to find a thin layer of snow had fallen inside the soundstage. Real snow. Indoors. On a set about demonic possession. The actors could only spend about 15 minutes in the room before they had to leave and warm up. Everyone except Linda Blair wore protective clothing under their costumes. Blair, playing possessed Regan, wore only a thin nightgown for most of her scenes. She was 14 years old, shivering in sub-zero temperatures while cameras rolled. The exorcism sequence took nearly a month to film, all shot in order. About 5 shots per day. The complexity of the effects combined with the freezing temperature made everything take longer, but Friedkin insisted he wanted to see that breath. He wanted it to look and feel real, and he didn't care what it cost physically.
Is it Captain Howdy?
I don't know.
If I ask him to tell me, will you let him answer?
No.
Linda Blair's lasting scars. Linda Blair was 12 when she auditioned for The Exorcist. She got the role because she was mature for her age and wasn't frightened by the material. Being raised Protestant, she didn't fully understand the Catholic concept of possession, which actually helped her stay calm during filming, but calm didn't mean unharmed. During scenes where possessed, Regan thrashes violently on the bed. Blair was strapped into a harness attached to wires that would jerk her around. The special effects team controlled these wires. During one take, something went wrong. The harness came loose, and metal bracing slammed repeatedly into Blair's lower back. Her screams in that scene are real screams of pain. Blair fractured her lower back during filming. That injury led to a lifelong struggle with scoliosis. She was 14 years old and suffered a permanent spinal injury making a movie. Years later, footage surfaced showing Blair crying out, "Please, make it stop. It hurts. It burns." Those weren't scripted lines. That was a child in genuine agony, and they used the footage in the film. The physical pain was only part of what Blair endured. When The Exorcist became a phenomenon, religious zealots started sending death threats. They believed the film glorified Satan, and they blamed Blair personally. Warner Brothers provided her with bodyguards for 6 months after the film's release. A 12-year-old girl needed armed protection because she played a role in a movie. The attention and threats affected Blair for years. In interviews decades later, she spoke about how difficult it was to live with the aftermath of The Exorcist, both the physical injuries and the psychological impact of being at the center of such controversy at such a young age. Ellen Burstyn's permanent injury. Ellen Burstyn played Chris McNeil, Regan's desperate mother trying to save her daughter. Like Blair, Burstyn suffered a serious injury that affects her to this day, and it happened because Friedkin demanded the scene look real. The scene required Chris to be thrown backward violently when the demon shoves her away from Regan's bed. To accomplish this, Burstyn wore a harness with a wire attached. A stuntman would pull the wire, yanking Burstyn backward onto the floor. During rehearsals, Burstyn told Friedkin the stuntman was pulling too hard. She warned she could get hurt. Friedkin's response was typical. "It has to look real." Burstyn repeated her concern. "I know it has to look real, but I'm telling you, I could get hurt." Friedkin supposedly told the stuntman not to pull so hard. But Burstyn later suspected he canceled that instruction behind her back, because the next take, the stuntman yanked the wire even harder. Burstyn slammed into the floor with devastating force. Her scream of pain was glass-shattering and completely genuine. That's the scream you hear in the film. Burstyn permanently injured her spine. Decades later, she admitted the back injury was far more serious than she initially realized and affected her health negatively for years. She suffered chronic pain because a director prioritized getting the shot over her safety. The voice of the demon. Mercedes McCambridge provided the demon's voice, and the process of creating it was as disturbing as the final result. McCambridge was chosen because her voice sounded neither distinctly male nor female, giving Pazuzu an otherworldly quality. But McCambridge didn't just show up and read lines. To achieve the demon's voice, she made extreme physical sacrifices. She chain-smoked continuously to roughen her vocal cords. She swallowed raw eggs multiple times a day to create what she described as plenty of junk in her throat. She drank Jack Daniel's whiskey despite being a recovering alcoholic. McCambridge broke her sobriety to voice a demon. During recording sessions, Friedkin had her tied to a chair. He wanted the demon to sound like it was struggling against restraints, so McCambridge was literally bound while performing. She thrashed against the ropes while delivering Pazuzu's lines, creating a voice that sounded genuinely tormented and furious. McCambridge also insisted that 2 priests be present during her recording sessions. She wanted to be absolved immediately after finishing each session, as if the act of voicing the demon required spiritual cleansing. The whole process took a psychological toll on everyone involved. Initially, Friedkin planned to leave McCambridge uncredited, thinking it would be more effective if audiences believed Linda Blair's voice was coming from the possessed girl. McCambridge later fought for screen credit, and only with the Screen Actors Guild's help did she receive proper acknowledgement for her work. The ominous warning. During filming, something strange happened to Jason Miller, who played Father Karras. A priest approached him on the street. This priest supposedly had no knowledge of The Exorcist, didn't know what it was about, and didn't know Miller was connected to the film. The priest handed Miller a medallion and gave him a warning that still sends chills down the spine. Reveal the devil for the trickster that he is. He will seek retribution against you, or he will even try to stop what you are trying to do to unmask him. Then the priest walked away. Miller was left holding a medallion and a warning about demonic retribution, given by a stranger who allegedly knew nothing about the film. Whether this actually happened or became embellished over time, the story became part of the Exorcist legend. If the warning was real and should have been taken seriously, maybe it could have prevented some of the 9 deaths that followed. The murderer in the cast. Among the cast of The Exorcist was a man named Paul Bateson. He played a radiologic technologist in one brief scene. It was a small role, easily forgotten. Except Bateson would later become infamous for an entirely different reason. In 1977, Bateson murdered variety journalist Addison Verrill. He was convicted and sentenced to prison for the killing. It's believed he may have been responsible for other murders as well, possibly connected to a series of killings in New York during that period. Bateson served time and was released in 2003. He reportedly died in 2012. The fact that an actual murderer appeared in The Exorcist added another layer to the film's dark legacy. It wasn't just that the production was plagued by deaths and accidents. One of the people who worked on it went on to kill someone. The curse seemed to extend beyond the production itself. The audience reactions. When The Exorcist opened on December 26, 1973, the day after Christmas, Warner Brothers knew they had something powerful. What they didn't anticipate was the physical reactions audiences would have. This wasn't people jumping at scares or covering their eyes during scary parts. This was mass hysteria on a scale nobody had seen before. People fainted in theaters. Some vomited. Ambulances were stationed outside some screenings because they knew they'd be needed. Theaters had to position ushers with buckets in the aisles for people who couldn't make it to the bathroom in time. Audience members would stumble out mid-film, pale and shaking, unable to continue watching. One woman fainted and broke her jaw when she hit the theater floor. She sued Warner Brothers, claiming the film contained subliminal messages that caused her to pass out. The lawsuit alleged these hidden images or sounds triggered her collapse. Whether subliminal messages existed or not, Warner Brothers didn't want that debate playing out in newspapers. Rather than fight the lawsuit publicly and risk more controversy, the studio settled out of court quickly and quietly. Whether subliminal messages existed or not, the studio didn't want that debate in the news. Another woman blamed a miscarriage on the film. The reactions were so extreme that people began saying the film itself was evil, that simply watching it could open you to demonic possession. Theaters that showed The Exorcist faced protests. Some refused to screen it at all. Religious groups condemned it as satanic. Lines wrapped around blocks. People waited hours in the cold to see what everyone was talking about. When they got inside, many couldn't handle it. They'd run from the theater, some in tears, others physically ill, and yet they kept coming. The Exorcist became the highest-grossing R-rated film of its time, holding that record until the late 90s. The film's power wasn't just in the special effects or the shocking imagery. It was in how it made people question reality. Was there actual evil in the world? Could a film about demonic possession invite something dark into your life? The Exorcist made people confront questions they'd rather avoid, and that psychological impact was more disturbing than anything on screen. The legacy of pain. 50 years later, The Exorcist remains one of the most influential horror films ever made. It received 10 Academy Award nominations, including Best Picture. It changed the horror genre permanently, but the cost was enormous. 2 actors suffered permanent spinal injuries. 9 people died. Countless others were hurt. A film that explored the battle between good and evil seemed to bring actual darkness with it. Whether you believe in curses or attribute everything to coincidence, the facts are undeniable. The Exorcist left a trail of pain, injury, and death in its wake. Max von Sydow, who played Father Merrin, dismissed the curse theory. He pointed out that when you film something for over a year, with hundreds of people involved, accidents and deaths will happen. It's statistics, not supernatural forces. But even he couldn't deny that the sheer number of incidents was unusual. William Friedkin achieved his masterpiece through methods that would end careers today. He got the performances he wanted by terrorizing actors, injuring them, and pushing everyone past reasonable limits. The result was a film so powerful that it still disturbs audiences decades later. But that power came at a cost nobody should have had to pay. The Exorcist proved you could make a truly terrifying film by making the production itself terrifying. The fear on screen was real because the fear behind the cameras was real. The pain was real. The injuries were real. The deaths were real. And 50 years later, those scars remain. If you want more dark secrets from classic films, hit that like button and subscribe. The stories behind what you see on screen are often more disturbing than anything Hollywood puts in front of the camera.